Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and very recently I was lucky enough to get my hands, these things here, on Super Mario Odyssey, and I'm going to tell you what I think about it. It's going to be unscripted. I haven't even got notes this time because I've got too much else to do, so let's get going. So, Super Mario Odyssey, well, I only managed to play 2 levels. I was able to play the Metropolis one, New Donk City, I can't remember exactly what it was, Metropolis Kingdom I think it's called, or the Metro Kingdom, anyway, it doesn't matter. And I also played the Sand Kingdom, and I actually played that one more than I played the Metro Kingdom. And but to be honest, they both were good fun. The Metro Kingdom, I have to admit, felt a little bit emptier than I'd anticipated, at least in terms of things to do. I'm not entirely certain whether it's because I do know that there are various things you can go there at night and things like that. But apart from that, you know, sort of, yeah, it was very impressive, very good fun. Even just running around as Mario around the Metro Kingdom was fantastic. It does still feel weird running around life-sized humans, but apart from that, the actual layout and everything was very cleverly done, and there were loads of things to run about and do, but at the same time, everything was sort of hidden and tucked away, so which is a good thing really, because it's about exploration, but at the same time initial impressions felt like there wasn't really much to do at first, but you know, sort of running around did give me the impression that there is more to do, thankfully, and I did manage to find a good number of moons, which is the equivalent of stars in this game, or shines if you played Super Mario Sunshine, and yeah, it was good fun. There was something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I think it was probably because of the lack of narrative, and also I had no audio whatsoever when playing it, which was a bit of a bad thing. I think that was due to my capture card, but I can't be certain, you know, in regards to that. But it did feel a little bit empty in that ring. I'm rambling. The very best part for me initially was just how Mario controls. He controls exactly as you would expect, except, you know, the classic Super Mario move of jumping and then diving? You can still do that, but it's on a different button combination. And that sort of threw me off for a minute, because Y is entirely to do with the hat. Y and X both do the same thing. There are essentially only 2 face buttons in Super Mario Odyssey. There's jump, which is A or B, and there is the hat throw or hat related moves with Y and X. That's which surprised me, because you'd sort of think that, you know, you'd use more than that, but then again, at the same time, it means you never have to move your thumb, which is a good thing. You can still do the dive, and there's also this really interesting move that you can do, which the people there showing me the game told me to try out and see whether I could do it. And of course I could, because I have played video games before. You jump, throw Cappy, and then you dive onto it and bounce off, and that means you essentially got a double jump, and it's very high, very long, and is apparently sort of the typical speedrunning move that a lot of speedrunners are going to use. And that was good fun, and it really did open things up. And just not that really anything needed opening up, it was just all there immediately. It was, you know, it felt less Super Mario 64 and less Super Mario Sunshine, and felt more Banjo-Kazooie, which is honestly no bad thing, because obviously all the moons are there pretty much already, nearly all of them, or at least I believe so, I don't know, because I haven't counted them all or collected them all. But you don't choose a specific moon and then go into the level and then try and get in that regard, like Super Mario 64 and Sunshine and even Galaxy to a degree. Rather, you go in, you run around and you grab stuff, you grab a moon, and then it just sort of, you know, allows you to carry on. You grab another moon, it lets you carry on, and I much prefer that layout. It does make it a little bit harder to find the moons, because I'm not sure whether there's actually a list, because each moon has a name describing how you get it, much like the other ones, you know, the stars and things in Super Mario 64 and the shines in Super Mario Sunshine, which help you sort of tell you where you need to go, you know, give you an idea of roughly what to do. I don't know whether there's a list of those, but I imagine there is somewhere, but I didn't see it in my impressions. I did not get very long with the game, sadly. But yeah, that was the Metro Kingdom, and the Sand Kingdom is very similar in many regards as well, in terms of it feels, well, it is and it isn't. The Metro Kingdom feels very condensed. It feels less open because it is inherently smaller. But the Sand Kingdom's enormous. It's fantastic. You can run around. It's, there is a lot of empty space, but that's empty space. You can run and jump and roll and things like that. It's great fun. I really, really enjoyed it. And to be honest, the Sand Kingdom was my sort of preferred of the two. And what was really nice is much, again, like Banjo-Kazooie. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there was quite a lot of inspiration from there. There are various moons where you have to perform certain tasks before you do them, and that usually involves getting a moon, and then by getting that moon, then you're right next to a switch, you activate the switch, and then it sort of opens up a pathway, and you can go across that pathway, and you can start to explore a broader area, or it opens up the pyramid is one of the things it did, and I could have gone up and fought Bowser, I think, but I couldn't actually do that because I ran out of time. I just walked through the doorway and it said, "Thank you for playing," and it's so annoying because I really wanted to get up there. Although I imagine an attendant might have come along and said, no, you can't do that. But I don't know. Maybe they would have let me. I think the biggest thing that's difficult to get my head around is the scope of it. I mean, it's so massive. And I know you probably argue the galaxy was bigger in terms of its levels. Sort of all the different galaxies were bigger. But, a lot of it was just empty space. And you couldn't even do anything in that empty space. It was jumping back and forth, which is fine. I'm not knocking Galaxy at all. It is a wonderful game. But it was nice to be able to do more, sort of to have that space in this big, wide open area. Unfortunately, there is a payoff in that regard, and that is that the game runs at 720p, and admittedly, I was about, sort of maybe this far away from the screen at the time, and it was quite a big one, and but I could really see the edges, and it did not sort of hold up well in terms of resolution, which is a real shame. And there's a lot of pop-in and stuff like that, which is much more noticeable in the Metro Kingdom than it is in the Sand Kingdom. In the Sand Kingdom, I think just because it is more open and barren rather than condensed with a lot of characters running around, it just, sort of, there was a lot less pop-ins, so there was a lot less of that, which is good. But I imagine when I actually get it back here into my studio and I start playing it, I'm further away from the screen and, sort of, I'm sure it'll look a lot better. I didn't manage to see it on the handheld, which was a real shame. Hopefully, maybe they can boost the resolution to 900p or something, but at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. Super Mario 64's got a crap resolution and that game's still brilliant. I do have one sort of worrying wiggle about the game, because although it is brilliant from what I've played of it, and it is really holding up to be fantastic and honestly an incredible Mario game, the motion controls worry me a little bit, because when I was, sort of sat down to play, they handed me the JoyCons and I saw a Pro Controller and I said, "Oh, can I use the Pro Controller at all?" And they said, "No, because, sort of because of the motion controls, use the JoyCons." And I was like, okay, I mean, the Pro Controller is supported, we know that. But, it sort of did worry me because there are certain moves. I am getting really bad at just letting the camera overrun, aren't I? Okay, let's continue. Sorry. There are various moves that you have to do with the Joy-Cons, or at least it seemed that way by the way they presented it. I've chatted to other people since, and apparently, sort of all the Joy-Con moves, like getting Cappy to spin around you in like a very useful whirlwind is the only way I can describe it. Apparently they can all be done with the Pro Controller, which is obviously very important, because when you're, sort of going around, if you want to play in handheld mode, you can't move the Joy-Cons individually, which you need to do in order to do all these moves. So it's very important that motion controls are only an option, unless of course it's just tilting where you would tilt the device, but it's not. It's like throwing like that. Bit more like ARMS, and ARMS has physical controls, so that's fine. So I'm sure that's something that will be sorted either by the time it comes out, or has already been sorted, but they just gave me the Joy-Cons, or maybe the build I was playing didn't support it for some reason. I don't know. All I know is that apparently that is not an issue, which is very, very good. I just hope it, it's not limiting you by not using the motion controls, because that would be a real shame. Because, I like motion controls, but, you have to judge a game on its merits, and if it doesn't allow, sort of just standard physical controls to do everything, that has to be, you have to take that into account, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Especially when you're, sort of saying, it's portable, take it with you. Just talking about it now just makes me really want to dive back in with it, and I can't, and it's so annoying, but it's going to be out soon. But my goodness, that game is really shaping up to be just superb. The controls are just superb, provided, of course, we can, skip that sort of motion control caveat for a moment. The controls are just so responsive. It's everything you'd want in Mario. it's more, I would say it feels closest, if anything, to Sunshine in terms of control when it comes to movement and things like that. Mario's very quick to move around and it's very, very responsive. And I haven't even talked about capturing the enemies. This is a problem when you don't do notes. Capturing enemies and other things is just so much fun. It's very difficult. Again, the closest thing I can compare it to is Banjo-Kazooie when you did the transformations, only it's just at a moment's notice. And sometimes it, can make a section easier, or it can make a section more difficult, or it is absolutely required. And it just opens things up, and the game basically is kind of a sandbox game in many regards. It just sort of throws you all these things and says, there you go, get some things. And, sort of maybe there's an area where you have to go through a pipe in order to get up to the top and go through a 2D section, which are good fun, although do not feel like the original Mario Bros, which took me a moment to get my head around. But instead of doing that, you can do the thing that I said before, where you essentially jump, or maybe you do one of the, what is it? I can't remember what you call it, the side flip. So you do a side flip, throw the hat, then you dive forward and bounce off that, and you get enough height to just skip that entirely, and you are perfectly within your rights to do that. The game doesn't sort of dock you or try and force you in with invisible walls. The game is just open and organic, and you can get things in the way that you want. But at the same time, it doesn't give you too much freedom. It doesn't allow you to just, sort of fly around everywhere or anything like that, which is one of the main complaints that a lot of people had. Not that I've fully played it yet. I'm saving myself for the Switch version of Yooka-Laylee. Sort of towards the end of the game, you can get a flying ability, which is good, but then it sort of breaks a lot of the game, because then all the pages, all the collectibles are just incredibly easy to get beyond, somewhere they're not just sort of there in a static location, and that is a worry, but it doesn't look like that you can do that in Super Mario Odyssey, which is fan-dabby-dozy, I don't mind telling you. But there are still those sort of little things where you have to do specific actions in order to get in. You can't just sort of jump your way through it as well. There's this one bit in the Metro Kingdom which was really good. There's this guy driving around this remote control car, and you capture him, so you burrow into his brain like the little parasitic brain worm that you are, and you then control the RC cart, and you have to drive around using some funny old controls, but they are more like actual remote control cars. It's not just a case of moving around like it is, you move Mario around. You have to use a different control scheme to get there and get this moon that's hidden in a cage that you can only reach with the remote control car. And it works brilliantly. It's a wonderful way of introducing sort of new and interesting mechanics and different control schemes and different ways of playing the game at a moment's notice. Again, it's very much like the Banjo-Kazooie transformations, but it's, again, just instant like that. You just, sort of, I need to do this, just, whoa, I'll capture the camera that I'm recording with, and you can do the thing. It's honestly, it's sublime, it's so effortless, and that is definitely massively to its merit. The only thing I worry about is that it may not be that accessible for younger players. It may be just because I'm sort of looking at it from a platforming point of view, and I think the sort of easy platformers are more designed for younger players. But I must admit, some of the platforming was really quite precise and quite punishing in some regards, which is fantastic for me. I love a challenge. But I do worry about others. It may well be that I was just, happened to be picking the moons that were harder to get, which is not impossible, because that's the kind of person I am. So it may be that there are easier moons, and so it balances the difficulty in that way, that there are harder ones, but you don't need to get all the moons in a kingdom. And apparently some kingdoms have 20, 30, 40 moons in them, don't quote me on that, which is a lot, and that is really, really encouraging. Because as far as we know, we already know of 4 kingdoms, I think, and there are still some that are as yet unannounced, which is, wonderful, because we want these huge open worlds and run around in them and collect loads of moons. It's just really exciting, and I'm so excited for this game. Honestly, sort of as long as the other kingdoms are as good as the 2 that I played, it's gonna be fantastic. A lot of people said that the change in locale is quite jarring for them. I didn't get that. I mean, it's jarring, but it's good jarring. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like going into an entirely different game in some regards that just plays exactly. It's like having sort of, however many kingdoms there are, it's like having that many individual Mario games like instant sequels. That's how it feels, and honestly, it is wonderful. And there's the occasional crossover, like I've seen someone from the Metro Kingdom. I'm not sure it is called the Metro Kingdom. I think I've embarrassed myself for this entire video. There's this guy from the Metro Kingdom who's crashed his taxi in the Sand Kingdom, and so he's surrounded by these, I can't remember the name of the event. Oh, the Mexican event, the Day of the Dead. Oh, I feel very, very uncultured right now. But he's surrounded by all these guys, with these skull masks and shaking maracas and things like that, and he's just there, a normal human going, "Ah, my normal human car. It's crashed in this ice. What am I going to do?" And it's weird, but it works. It really is a wacky world, and yes, that was intended. I think I've bleated on long enough about this, but yes, Super Mario Odyssey, those are my first impressions, all very positive, with a few little niggles here and there that hopefully are not going to be present in the full game, or, are resolved and it was just a matter of the build I played or something like that. But we don't know. We will find out on the final build. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you capture that subscribe button and then run around shouting, "Haha, I'm a little subscribe button" from Nintendo Life. And be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.